This is the view from the top step of the Lima Baptist Church near Travelers Rest, South Carolina. It's the vicinity of where George Allen was buried. Now, Robert Earl Allen's history of George Allen and this burial location says that this new church building is built several hundred yards across the road from the original church building, but I don't know what road he's referring to, because this church is almost at the top of this hill, which you see the cemetery here is the very top of the hill, and he says that the original church is several hundred yards across the road and up a steep hill, and yet this church is a high point. My car here is facing a ravine. This entire hilltop is surrounded by a ravine. So when he says across the road, he must mean the highway at the foot of the hill near the entrance to this to the road that comes up to this church. Now, across the street, across the road from the entrance to the Lima Baptist Church road, is this old building that looks like a church or maybe a schoolhouse. Two-story house with a basement level. It says that it's the home of John N. Goodwin. So the very same people that we saw in the fancy fenced-off area in the Lima Baptist Church cemetery. Interesting. And so I'm just going to take a little walk around the perimeter here. Hopefully it won't take me too long. But you can see I'm walking along this parking lot and driveway that surrounds this hilltop cemetery. Hoping it doesn't start raining on me. There seem to be a number of homes that are built around this this cemetery and this church road. There's one here to the side. I think I'm just about getting to the lowest point in the road before it rises again. And up ahead there, you can see there's another car, which marks another home. And I believe that's the house that I passed as I came in. So I'll just stop here for a second and get some perspective. So you can see it's quite a hill, quite a grade that I've descended to this point below the cemetery. Yes, this is the road that I came in on, and up ahead I see the stop sign that marks the road that goes up to the church. It's really quite a nice place to be buried, I would say. Though I think it would be nicer to be buried somewhere that's marked where your descendants can come to visit. But I've come to accept that ancestors get lost. Families migrate. They lose contact with their parents and their grandparents. And within a generation or two, the parents and grandparents are forgotten. Some pretty little flowers. And then here's another perspective up the hill. And the church steeple peeking over the top of the hill. And you can see here's a house. I don't know if these are homes or what do you call it, a parsonage for the minister, or if it's just some people who bought the land and built a house here. And now we're going back up, and what a climb this is going to be. Just looking at the maps, I thought that this home here on the right, you know, just looking down on a map of the location, I thought this house was where the old church used to be. But obviously, even though it's across the road, so to speak, it's not up a steep hill. The church is up a steep hill. I like the windows on that church, the crescents at the top. Here we have somebody coming. All right, so I'm back at the top of the hill. Well, I'm back at the church, the front of the church. And I'm going to walk over here now to where the unmarked graves, I don't know if they're necessarily unmarked or just not engraved, you know, maybe a field stone or something without text, or maybe like this one here, the text is just worn completely away. Lizzie and Michael are on a precarious location here. Burl. Let's see maybe the back side of this one. Oh yeah, the back side of this one is legible. William Washington Johnson and Louise. You can see their footstones. Yeah, those two graves there on the edge, I bet they weren't on the edge until they cut that road. And now here are just some field stones that I'm sure would mark a grave. If that ever had a name on it, I can't tell anymore. And then here's some stones here. It looks like maybe they were standing at one time. I would say this looks like it might be two graves. Headstones and footstones, probably not marking heads, but who knows. And then here's a stone. Maybe these are marking one grave. Yeah, if that was ever engraved, I can't tell now. Get the perspective here. And then here, something Ada or something and Josie Ward. Oh, I think it's a child of those people. And this one's not legible. And this one is not legible. The back side's legible. Oh, here we go. This is Caroline, wife of David Burns. And I can't make that out. Maybe I'll be able to make it out later when I look at the video on my laptop. Here's Jane Watkins, wife of W.R. Allen. And then here's W.R. Allen. I'll have to look him up. I bet that he is one of, see, 1853, that would put him in the maybe a grandson of George Allen, because George Allen was born in the mid-1700s, and then my great-great-great-grandfather Duke was born in 1790, so that was more the same generation as so this is probably one of the grandchildren or great-grandchildren of George Allen. And here's another unmarked or uncarved gravestone. And these are just completely eroded away. And here's a marker for a grave. It's always hard for me to decide if it's a headstone or a footstone that I'm looking at, unless you see them in a pair. So, for instance, this one could be a footstone for William Allen's wife, and this one could be the footstone for William Allen, even though it's next to the grave of Warren Kelly. I guess that just goes to show you an old piece of concrete is as good a headstone as any material in the forest. Mary Barton. So the suspicion is that George Allen's wife Nancy, there is some suspicion that she was a Barton. And here's a bit of evidence that Bartons were indeed in the area. Well, I mean, there's a Barton Creek, so it had to have been named after somebody. Here we are at the top of the hill, and we've got a number of graves that are in this fenced-in area. And here are some more graves that have headstones that are not necessarily legible. Now here's an Allen. A child. Looks like maybe Marianne. Yeah, Marianne Allen. 2 years old in 1858. Here's a stone that probably, if I had some paper to do a rubbing, I could make out what it says. And the same here, but I'll probably be able to read this one when I get it on my computer. So perspective again. Here's where I've come from. And some definitely newer graves down this side. Seems like all the very oldest are up here on the very top of the hill. And we'll have to come back and take a look now at this area that was fenced in with a dilapidated old fence. Really, every time I see stuff like this, I'm really tempted to get get in with a little shovel and trowel and start excavating and restoring. Like this looks like it might have been, if not a headstone, it was like maybe a cornerstone that was holding some original fencing, because that hole looks like it might have been supporting either a, you know, like the bearing for a gate or just the corner post of a fence. If I could just read one of these, it would be really nice just to get an idea of whose family might have been burying their people in this little plot. Oh, here we go. Wife of H. Fuller, 1815 to 1882. Let's see if I can get her. Huldah. I'm gonna have to get around where I can. So maybe the folks in here are all Fullers. Maybe it's Huldah H. Huldah H, wife of H. Fuller, or E, wife of Huldah H, wife of H. Fuller, born August 23rd, 1815, died July 18th, 1882. So this little area up here is 100 years after George Allen. Yeah, there are lots of just these random stones, field stones. So, okay, so here's the church. John and Jane Cox. Thurman. I'll have to see if I can read that when I get home. Yeah, these would probably be legible if they were treated with some of that biocide stuff that eats up all of the lichen that's growing on the stone. Maddie, daughter of J.A. Sunni Cox, 1904. Clara Trammell Brown. Oh, here's an Allen. Jeff M. Allen. He's Doc Earl Allen. He's within my lifetime. And here's Fanny Brown, wife of Jeff. Inez Allen. Looks like she died when she was 20. Charlie, a child or an infant. Claude, a boy. Marty, Jane. So this Allen plot is next to a plot with people named Trammell. James Lee Davis. Benny Trammell, wife of J.T. Barry. D.W. Trammell. Well, I can tell Trammell, oh, Alex. The name is up on top. Alex Trammell. And I believe these are just footstones. Nanny Allen, wife of James Perkle, 1916 to 1952. I like the way they put the wife's maiden name. That's pretty cool. And here we've got some field stones. And here are a couple that look like they might have had an engraving at one time, but they are thoroughly eroded. Sally Hood, William Hood, Cora Hood, Landrum Hood, Emma. A lot more Trammells. Sorry to trample the Trammells. You cannot escape souped up exhaust when you live in a valley. Cora Allen Trammell. Lowton Turner. Here are a bunch of other field stones. Here's one that's got a marker like it was recent burial, but it is not legible. Lewis Buchanan, Mary Buchanan, good American president name. Not to say it was a good American president, but a presidential name anyway. Tex Redding, B.D. Redding. I think a lot of these are just babies. Can't make that one out. Or that one without some assistance. And here, this one looked like it at one time had perfectly good engraved headstone that has broken off and disappeared. Did I already look at this guy here? Oh, I wouldn't be able to read that if I wanted to. And now somebody cares to have glued this headstone back together. My great-great-grandfather Allen, I wanted to do that to his headstone. It was broken off at the ground when a tree fell on it. But it's almost pointless when you can't read the stone. Some more trammels. Jesse, Frank, and Cora. It's really not my intention to see every grave, but I just don't know who's out here. Lizzie Augusta, daughter of B.P. Trammell, wife of E.V. Cox. Okay, this is another Trammell grave. Trammell. Well, that's just a cinder block, but Mother Sarah Timms. Now, I have some Timms in the Mitchell side of my family. Well, it's actually with Timms. Timms was an ancestor of the Joneses. So Vicey Llewellyn Jones, who married my great-great-grandfather Mitchell, she has Tim's ancestors. And they were from South Carolina, as I recall, so this could be, I don't know, 1963, that's pretty late. So that's probably not an ancestor, but could be somebody related. Fowler. Freeman. And I'm just going to make a quick distant pass down here since these are so much more legible. Trong. Got a Vietnamese person out here. White field. White field. Wilkie. Have some Wilkies on my mother's side. Actually, my maternal line has a Sinyloo Wilkie. Lindsay. McJunkin. Stags. Belt. Call that Diamond. Coggins. Hey, good. That was I was just speaking to the lady who was preparing to go in the church to do some planning for a meeting, and she told me that an Inez Roddy, whose maiden name is Haygood, knows a lot about the history of this area, because the Haygoods were noted farmers in the area. And she didn't specifically say, but my impression was that she meant that they were plantation farmers, not just subsistence. And here's some Allens. Pearlie A. and Mary Ann. Pearlie, that's an interesting name for a man. But behind those flowers is the name Allen. And here we have Stephen Lewis Allen, about my brother's age. And here's a William B. Allen. I bet that B stands for Barton. And Gertrude. Harvey and Florence. Bruce and Annie. Gilbreth. Oh, there's some more Allens. Louise C. and Buford. This is Alice Couch, wife of E.J. And here's E.J. A tender father and mother and a faithful friend. Alright, so now let's get up here to the top of the hill again, and I'll survey these real quick before I go to the enclosure. More trammels, a bramlet, trammel, Waldrop. I have cousins that married into Waldrop people. Here's another bramlet. Infant son of Lewis and Flora Bramlett, Flora Morgan. Yep, I really like that. Giving them their name. If you don't give a woman her name, she gets lost to history. And here's a Bramlett Bessie and Willie C. Yeah, Bessie and Willie C. And Boswell. Here's a Howard, Earl D. Howard, 1932 to 1958. And I may have already seen this one, Landrum, Boswell, and Mary Cox. And I just can't make that out. All right, let's see if I'm able to get into this gate. You can see this stone, the way the posts are set into it. That's what I think that stone is over by that other fenced area. It's just a foundation for holding the gate. So these are the grand poobahs, I guess, since they're up here with the fancy fence. Kelly, wife of Goodwin. 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 I guess the Goodwins are not going to have any trouble being remembered. Goodwin. Goodwin. And this, if you didn't know, Goodwin. Goodwin. Got any Allens married to Goodwins? Surely. Finley. See, Finley's up here amongst all the Goodwins, and his stone is getting eroded to where you can't read it anymore. He's an interloper. That's a good one. Yeah, so they've got a couple of Finleys. And here's a Haygood. And this guy has fell flat on his face. So we'll never know what it says. Because I ain't going to try to lift it. Maybe that raking light will help to read these later on. And here we got Eugene Goodwin, Lizzie. I'm sure it's a good one. If it doesn't say, assume Goodwin. Layla Goodwin Riley. This is something Davis. John H. Goodwin. Wish I could read that. This is something about this makes me think this is someone important. Louisa Goodwin. And a little marble marker, looks like it fell over on her grave and dissolved. Turpin. and Goodwin. I think that might say Caroline Turpin Goodwin. It's a shame that it's caved in like that. Married to Lula. I think the important thing is that these are all later burials than George would have been. George died in 1804, and his wife died sometime between well, I don't know how this works. It's probably not. I'll just leave it alone. Yeah, so George died in 1804, and his wife Nancy died between 1795 and 1800. So we know she had a child in about 1795. Her last child was in 1795, and then she was not shown on the 1800 census, so that's why we guess she must have died. Oh, and she was not on the 1804 will for George. So she wasn't in the 1800 census, she wasn't on the 1804 will, so she must have passed away. And then here's one final view of the church. And I was talking to a lady who was preparing for a Sunday service. I didn't catch her name, but she said that, as she understands it, the church has always been on this site, that there was an original church that burned down, and then this was built to replace it, and that she says that this road / parking lot that runs behind the church and loops around to that little house on the back corner there is a county road that the county maintains, and this home back here is a private property that's unrelated to the church, and then the house that was down by the stop sign at the foot of this road, this hill on this county road, is the parsonage. And she said that they put video cameras up because young people were coming out here and using it as a place to park and party. So now the county sheriff comes through and makes sure no one's up here doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And now somebody else is here. But she did say she was having a meeting. Well, just look at this. I don't know if you can see through the light, but this just makes me think of the rainforests in Seattle. Only this is a warm, sultry wet. Right down here. This is this house at the end of the road. That's the parsonage for Lima Baptist Church. It's a beautiful setting.